Mike, I thought we would just start off by going through some questions that people have asked us over the years about how to be a personal trainer, start a business, get clients, etc., pitfalls that they may run into in the hopes that we can help that next generation out there. I thought I would start off by just asking you this question that someone asked me recently. What's the biggest hurdle new personal trainers face when they start their business? Is there
Definitely. It's one of those things where is the letting the glitz and glamour of the career get in the way of actually doing business, because everybody thinks it's like such a great career and stuff, which it is. It's just they don't understand there's a lot of business behind it that we aren't taught. We know how to do sets and reps. We know how to work with people. We know how to do nutrition programs, but we don't know how to set up an LLC. We don't know how to set up a retirement plan. We don't know how to get clients. We don't know how to deal with owners of clubs. We don't know how to market. We don't know how to do all the stuff that it's maybe fun for people, but it's usually what they don't understand. And my impression of that is we're never taught that. And that's the hardest part. Once you get going with it, it actually becomes part of the fun part of it, getting the network moving and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the exercise science textbooks out there for certifications cover, again, a lot of the science, not a lot of the rubber meets the road stuff. And I think you nailed it. If you are in business for yourself, you should have an LLC. I think that's really important. It's pretty easy to set up. Maybe consider having a business bank account separate from your personal bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you were to go to work in a gym, and I think that's where a lot of us started. I think that's how a lot of people get their jobs. But for those who are maybe going to a gym for the very first time, in classes I teach, I always say, bring a resume with you. And it's pretty easy to create a resume. There's templates out there. If you have a Mac or a Windows machine, there's templates built into the word processors. I think that's going to set people ahead of maybe 99% of people who walk into a gym and have no resume. Resume is not only getting in front of people, but also having them remember you. I also suggest that people, rip jeans out of the question. You don't have to wear a three-piece suit or anything like that, but a collared shirt, some nice slacks or something like that is really important. And then, when you finally do get that interview, I think one of the missed opportunities for people who are walking into in a gym situation for the very first time. Usually they ask you a lot of questions. What are your strengths? Where you want to be in 5 years? But at some point during that interview, they always ask people, do you have any questions for me? And a lot of people say, no, not at all. I'll see you later. And I say, no, that's probably the worst thing you can do. You should ask questions, hopefully probing questions that'll make them think and hopefully get them to remember you longer. Like, for example, how many clients does the average personal trainer have? Not the best, the average.
Mm-hmm.
You know the average salary. That'll give you an idea of, can you make your car payment if you're going to work there? How am I going to get my clients? Am I going to have to go out to the gym floor and get my clients myself? Are you going to feed me clients? If so, who's feeding me clients? Is it the sales staff? Is it the fitness director, etc.? I want to know these questions. And I'm also big on asking people, what's your emergency procedures at the gym like? We're not going into specifics. I've heard horror stories of what goes on in some gyms during medical emergencies. And I've also heard good stories as well. But I think asking about those medical emergency situation scenarios, I think that's a good idea. What are those rules? And if the rule is, hey, we just call 911, well, that's not an emergency situation. So,
No.
yeah, what do you do after that?
I always pose when I go into stuff, it's like, what would I have to do to make you feel like I've been successful a year from now? So that puts up the expectations right away as to what they expect out of you.
Yeah.
So when I worked with a club with my brother, we had a really unique way of dealing with personal trainers. And this probably won't work with most gyms, but if it can work, it worked really well, because we worked at a big gym, locally owned, but we had two staffs. We had a personal training staff and we called the athletic staff. And what the athletic staff does, they were in charge of like doing the intro orientations to the machines. They were in charge of all the programs and the events that we would do. And what they would do is they were salaried employees. For 3 months, they would be salaried employees and do all that stuff. At the end of 3 months, we allowed them to have one personal training client. So if they got them 3 times a week, they got their salary plus the personal training client. The second month after that was actually the 5th month, they got 2 personal training clients. And same thing, however many times you can train them, that's up to you. The 3rd month, you could have 3 personal training clients. So if you're doing hourly plus 3 personal training clients, and if you're getting, say, maybe 5-6 hours a week, you're making pretty good money. At the end of the 6 months, you have to make a decision. Do you want to be a personal trainer or do you want to be athletic staff? You can't be both. Probably 90% of the time, it was, I want to be a personal trainer because now I know what's going on. You have clients, you know how to get clients. You're familiar with the gym. People know you, people see it. And it was amazing how much success we had with that. We had one guy, though, he said, I don't want to be a personal trainer. I love being the athletic staff. I can't wait to introduce the people to the gym. And we go, that's perfectly fine. We have no problem with that. So what ended up happening is he would funnel the clients to us. So we give him a kickback. And it was like he was getting like, $50 for every client we got. And it was like, before too long, he's making more in kickbacks in his hourly wages, but he was happy. And that's the thing with it is you don't have to train clients to be a personal trainer. You can do a lot of other things as well and be successful.
That's really interesting. You were giving the person who is passing the clients on to you a said kickback. I was trying to be politically correct. A reward.
Incentive.
An incentive. That's really interesting because in a lot of gyms, that's not how it works. You were in a really good situation. It reminds me of one of the ways that I usually suggest people try to get clients, maybe whether in the gym, but even outside of the gym. I suggest that people go to one of those or several of those gym stores, the ones that sell the high fitness equipment, and walk in, and usually I say bring a clipboard with you, and like you're going through stuff, and eventually the salespeople are going to walk up to you. Hey, can I help you? And you say, hey, I'm got a personal trainer, and I'm thinking about recommending some equipment for my clients and stuff like that. At some point, you bring up the fact, hey, I actually have a referral fee. Would you be interested in this? And I usually pull out the little sheet of how much I'll pay them for the referrals. And it can be significant depending on how many people they refer to me. And I usually at the end of that conversation I say, listen, I know you don't know me, but just so you know I'm on the level here, here's $50. And I'm not asking anything back from them. Here's $50 for yourself, just so you know I'm on the level. And then at the end of every month, everybody who would call me on the phone, I would keep a little spreadsheet, and at the end of every month, I would walk in and I would have an envelope, for those salesmen to help them out. That works unless the manager finds out. The manager usually doesn't want you to do that. They want you to be, we'll put you on a list, and you go and you sell yourself to people who buy a treadmill, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's good. The group here, we have one that does the same thing, but we actually have him work out at the gym for free. So that was one of the things we said is, okay, what we want is you get a chance to see which client would be best with which trainer. And that was the best part about that athletic staff is they got to see what the strengths and weaknesses of each of the trainers are. And it was a perfect feed. So normally the retention was probably close to 80% on any client that was referred to a trainer. Now, actually, we had a waiting list of clients, but we also had a waiting list of trainers. And it got to the point at the end, we wouldn't even look at you unless you had a master's degree. Like, what? Yes, we had a list. We probably had 20, 30 people on a list, even from out of state that wanted to work there, because our average trainer, and this is, again, we're looking at from the early 2000s to mid 2000 teens, probably averaging between 80 and 90,000. That was after we paid the club. And the club was a progressive scale, so we had incentives. We didn't want part-time trainers is what the thing was. So we had a rate where you paid 40% for the first 1,000, 35 to 2,000, 30 to 3,000, 25 to 4,000, and after 4,000, it was 100% yours. So everybody would bust their butt to get to 4,000, and then they'd really bust their butt because then it's all 100% theirs. Because the average trainer probably has somewhere around 50 clients.
That sounds like a great scenario. It also sounds very different than, again, the big box gyms out there where you walk in and you go through the interview process, and they'll say, well, we'll pay you a base salary for floor time, and then we'll give you a percentage of what you make. So I know those gyms, like you're talking about, are still out there. The big names in fitness, probably, my guess is probably not going to do that anymore, unfortunately.
No. In essence, in the long run, they would actually save money. Yeah. Because there's no turnover of trainers. And they're not likely to try to steal from them or try to go underneath the table or anything like that, because it doesn't do you any good. You want to show all your money as fast as possible so that you can get to the free money. But it also then allows you to be a business to incorporate And that way you can write off everything. So
For those trainers who are new in the business, or maybe want to be personal trainers, or maybe even long-term trainers, what do you think are some good skill sets that will separate like a successful trainer from an average, just regular run-of-the-mill, trainer?
the biggest thing I think is finding your niche. And when we look at that is you get out there and do a vision statement or a mission statement for you. And, what is it that you want to see changed in the world would be a good thing with it. Another thing with it is what is it that your why statement? Why are you a personal trainer? And maybe it's because you went through a transformation of weight loss, and maybe it was something you went through a health issue, or maybe you were an athlete that got hurt and can't compete anymore, or maybe you helped somebody else do it, and that could be a big one. But that is the key thing, is it's about people relationship. When we first started, this is like in the early 90s with my brother, he had a great idea. He said, I want people to have a lot of money. So he said, well, I'm going to the golf club because that's where people with money go to play golf. So he goes to the person at the bar and goes, who is the one who has the most influence of the golfers around here? Who's the one everyone wants to play with and do all that? He goes, oh, by far, it's this guy here. But he's kind of crass and he's very rude and he swears a lot. And then he goes, oh, I don't care. He says, so what is his big thing? He says, oh, he wants to play better golf. So he called him up, cold called him and says, hi, I'm Tim Rickett. I'm a personal trainer. I could guarantee you that I'll take 2 strokes off your golf game in a month. Because I don't need no stupid personal trainer. You guys are a bunch of charlatans. This is garbage. So, what do you got to lose? I will train you for free. And when you take 2 strokes off your game, I want you to give me 5 names of people you play with that may want this. And he goes, there's no damn way. I says, I'll tell you what. If you don't, I'm going to find those 5 people and I'm going to train them for free. And then they're going to take 4 strokes off their game and take all your money. He's like, because he's that arrogant type thing. He goes, oh, okay, I'll do it. So what ended up happening is he took 4 strokes off his game. And not only did he give him the 5 names, everybody came. It was like almost overnight, all the people who were playing golf with this guy wanted to be trained. He goes, I'm a bad golfer. I don't do well with it, but I do know how to get people in shape. So the last 6 holes or whatever, they were in better shape, so they hit better shots. That's the whole thing with it. But that started this whole business, was basically one person. So that's very important, is to get your first client, because that may start your entire business.
And I think that segues into what I would say is a great trait for a personal trainer to have, is basically the ability to talk to people.
Absolutely.
We're living in a world now where people don't talk to each other. I was at a supermarket recently and I was like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, I was making small talk. Nothing. Again, these are younger people, and I wonder, have we lost something because of the pandemic, lost those social muscles? Are the phones the blame? I'm not quite sure, but it does appear that in the past, people talked more to strangers than they do now. And again, we live in a weird world, and sometimes people talk to you who don't know you. But you got to. It's a social business, and if you can't talk to people, I think you're in trouble. And I think that's something they also don't talk about a lot in the personal training textbooks. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't communicate it or communicate period to people, I think you're missing the mark. So I think working on that social skill, I think, will help people an awful lot make some headway in this business.
Absolutely. One of my coaches early on, when I would travel, he says, after you've done your certification classes and stuff, what you've got to do is you got to drive 30 minutes in your car without GPS, get out and talk to 10 people about your career. He says, it's going to teach you how to do your elevator pitch. And he goes, I don't care if it's when you go in to get a big gulp at 7-Eleven and you talk to the guy at the counter, or you talk to somebody in line. He says, you've got to get used to breaking the ice and talking to people about it, and maybe making an elevator pitch for it. I use the one, I'm into weapons of mass reduction for a long time, and people are like, what did you just say? He says, now they're asking me questions. And that worked really well. So I said, okay, I'm a personal trainer. And they go, oh yeah, I can use a little bit here. And I go, well, here's my card. And if you go to my website, there's a book that you can download for free that talks about personal training. And it has nothing to do with me, because I'm not going to get them as a client, but what I'm doing is an ambassador to personal training. So they may go to a personal trainer and they may be a follow-on to certifications. That happened in Atlanta a lot, and that's where we exploded with AAAI. So that was a really unique situation, but it was easy. And now what I do is, no matter where I am, I talk to people, and people are like, "What's going on?"
Okay, I like that. I like the idea of the elevator pitch as well. A lot of people may not be familiar with it, but that's you're basically, 10, 20 seconds to basically tell people what you do. I always remember a woman many years ago told me her elevator pitch was, people say, "What do you do?" She's like, "I change people's lives." And
I
I
love
thought,
that.
that's genius. It really gets people curious. Really, how do you do that? It's a great one line to really get people's attention and get people curious about what you do. And
Yep.
since you've run your own business, is there a mistake you have made that you would do over again if you could look back?
Definitely, it's getting complacent. When you start thinking, "Oh, yeah, I know what's going on. This is great." When it's at the highest time, when everything is going well, you gotta hammer the hardest then, because it can change overnight. We found that out with COVID. But even when you get stuff like, "Okay, I can't get any more clients, so I'm not going to push for it." No, that's when you do it, because all of a sudden you lose 3 clients. You go, "Oh crap, now I'm going to push for it." So you're 2 months down the road to get those clients to fill. So you have a decrease in revenue for a while. So that's not the best way to do it. The other thing with it is when you're humping it for clients, you're probably humping it in getting information, trying new ideas, trying programs to make things work. Well, where's your hobby and where do you hang out? And if you're not hanging out where your clients hang out, you better start changing. We went with my brother and I would go to the restaurants where they would hang out, and we'd go in on the off time and say to the manager, says, "Hey, we're personal trainers. A lot of our clients go here. We want to help them out with their diet. What would you recommend?" So we could help them when they come in to go these programs. And they go, "Well, why don't you just try?" I said, "Well, I'm sorry, we can't afford to eat here." He goes, "What's on the house?" And all of a sudden they're like, "What?" He says, "Oh yeah, you need to go to this restaurant because they have the really good this." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, this place over here is fantastic for that." And they're like, "How do you know this?" "Oh, we know the manager. Tell them Mike sent you." And they're like, "What?" And it got to be the point when my brother was going through chemo, he would always go to the same part. It was called Jay's. Unfortunately, they're not there anymore. But what it was is he got with the owner. He goes, "Here's the deal. Every time I have chemo, I want to come in and celebrate it." He goes, "We need to celebrate chemo. Just, hey, I'm going to get sick. I would better be sick because I drank too much than sick from some drug. Because the drug's supposed to make me better. The alcohol, I'm an idiot. I'm drinking too much." And it got to the point where they had so many people come in on the days that he had chemo that we had to call them beforehand so they can bring extra wait staff on. And it was like to the point where they actually named a drink after him because that was the only thing he could taste. But it was like, they loved it. Says, "When are you going to chemo again?" It's like, "Hey, I don't want to do chemo anymore." We missed that. We missed that interaction. It's like, it was amazing. But that's the thing with it, with every situation. Who says that it has to be him with chemo? Maybe we have somebody else to trade it off. Maybe it's a way of dealing something who celebrates weight loss or weight gain or some prize or whatever goal that they've made. I mean, that's the thing, is we're so afraid to celebrate other people's successes.
Yeah, I think
That was a big thing. It's like, well, can you be a bodybuilder and a bodybuilder trainer? He says that's a hard dilemma. He says, well, if you go to the contest and you don't win, that means you're not a good bodybuilder. But if your clients don't beat you, then you're not a good trainer. It's like, you can't compete against your clients unless you just go there for fun. So I go to a lot of the funky events just to see what it's like. So I'm going to the Olympia. I'll be the before picture for all the people there to make it easy on them. And then it's like, sorry, but I just want to see what the industry is. What is the biggest pitfall of this cycle? What is the biggest problem with their diet? Where do they see their problems in their training routines? What is the biggest supplement that everybody's using right now? And it'll be interesting that they'll be more than willing to share it because that's their life. Now, what does it cost you to be at this level?
Yeah, most definitely.
How many have gone through divorce? How many have gone through losing their jobs? How many have got health issues? How many have gotten, they're like, huh? Does it help your life or hurt you? Oh, I never thought of it that way. He says, well, here's the deal. The time and effort the discipline you put into your bodybuilding, have you put that into your relationships? Have you put that into your job? Have you put that into this? I know what you can do now. You can't tell me to put that into it, and all of a sudden you'll be hyper successful in everything you do.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think I'm a little bit more. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I don't know, but if I think one of the biggest mistakes people don't make and this is not just for personal training, but in general, is they don't save for the future. I
No.
heard that most Americans could not put their hands on $500 if they had to. So I'm a big proponent of starting to save now. And I've told my younger relatives this, and I know they're like, I'm like, if you just listen to me, I'll make you a millionaire by the time you're 50. Nobody told me this. And my rule of this is you should start saving. And my rule of thumb is half your age. So if you're
Yep.
20, start saving 10% everything. Put that into an online savings account where you'll actually make a greater amount of interest than at your local branch of your neighborhood bank. Get at least a year's worth of bills, electric bill, car payment, whatever. Have at least a year emergency fund, and then start saving. Maybe open up a Roth IRA. Again, half your age. Just do index funds. Don't try to beat the stock market and
Yes.
pick all the hot stocks and stuff like that. You can go to Fidelity, you can go to Vanguard, buy index funds, mutual funds, and then you can invest in Apple, you can invest in Microsoft and Nvidia and all these others, and you don't have to spend an awful lot. But again, half your age. As you get older, you're spending more. But if you start young, if you're 20, 10% of everything you make, just
Hmm.
start dropping that into either, again, a Roth IRA, or again your emergency fund. It should be a year. Some people say 6 months. We just went through a pandemic. I say a year.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I agree with that totally. It's kind
Yeah.
of like what Dave Ramsey's thing. He has a book out called Total Money Makeover. You can probably get it for like $1 on Amazon or stuff. Or if you call him, he'll send it to you.
Yeah.
But it talks about this. There's 4 steps. One is get an emergency fund for
Yeah.
expenses, car repair, house repair, something. Number 2 is get out of debt, which is the hardest one right now because people just don't know. It's this, you're paying 22% debt on your credit cards or your car payment or your student loans. Get out of that. It says if you have to get 2 jobs to do it, do it. Get out of debt because as soon as you're out of debt, you're paying yourself as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah.
Number
Right.
3 is doing that saving. That is get like whatever percentage you want to work with. And number 4 is to get to the point where you can like give and share the wealth with it, whether it's time, money, or skills. And that's very important because when you get to the point where you can share money with people to help them out with their thing, it gets really nice. I was in that state for a while. I had really good coaches that thing going to the one person I wanted. In a matter of 5 years, he had me retired. It was absolutely amazing. And he worked with the person my brother got. So we had a group of about 5 of our clients who were bound determined to make us successful. And they were happy to do it.
Yeah.
And one was in real estate, one was in banking, one was in cars, one was in the stock market, and one was in customer service, like restaurants and stuff. Just where does everybody meet? At the restaurants. What are they talking about? Real estate. What are they talking about? Their golf course. What are they talking about? Whatever. And it got to the point where it goes, okay, well, how much do you want to make when you wake up every morning? You go, what? How much do you want to make when you wake up every morning? You go, I don't understand. He goes, well, then you're never going to figure out what it is. So we said, well, okay, we want to make $10,000 when we wake up, $10,000 a month when we wake up. She says, okay. So roughly, it says, this is back in the 90s, says, you're probably going to need, he was a real estate guy, he goes, you're probably going to need 5 houses to make that, because my guess is in 20 years, 25 years, it's going to be an average of $2,000 rental in a house. Right? 2,000, who's going to pay that? He says, where do you find that now?
Right.
He goes, that's what he says. Then what you do is you get those 5 houses as fast as you possibly can. He says, you're going to be in debt,
Right.
but you just keep paying and paying and paying and paying and paying. Eventually, you pay off it. And you just keep paying on one as much as you can every month. And in a matter of, like I said, in 5 years, both my brother and I had 5 houses plus one we were living in. And then the other guy with investments says, well, why don't you invest in this? The same thing. It was like, put 10% into investments. Well, they went really well. And then you go, okay, here's the other problem. You are asset rich, money poor. That's the banker coming in. He goes, what do you mean by that? He says, you have a lot of assets. In paper, you're rich, but you can't go on vacation because you don't have enough money in the bank. He says, so let's take some of that asset money and create it into liquid so that you can do everything you want to do at the level you want to do and not have to worry about it. It was amazing.
I think it's a great idea. The other thing I would say to people is don't go into credit card debt to be a personal trainer.
Hmm.
There are really expensive certifications out there. I mean, like ridiculously expensive, and I would not recommend it. And I know some people are like, "Oh, well, this one is better." No, they're not. Case in point, has anybody, Mike, have any of your clients ever asked you who you're certified
No,
by?
they don't care.
The average client does not know the difference between all the different letters of the organizations out there. And yet I still see personal trainers, and they have they do, as I sometimes say, it's the letter mafia. It's all these letters behind their names. I don't do any of that. I don't even list my degrees anymore. I'm like, I'm over that whole thing.
No.
I just don't do it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares who you're certified by. All they care is, can you help them, and are you professional? Are you keeping up with the latest in research and stuff like that? And if you want to learn more, hey, go buy the books of the
Yeah.
expensive organizations. Then if you have the books, you have the knowledge.
Yes.
And that's what people care about the most anyway. They don't, again, hardly anybody's ever going to ask you who you're certified by. The only ones that ever ask you are like gym managers and gym owners, because they have in their mind that some organizations are more highly coveted than others. And to me, they don't matter. I've had people in classes that I teach, and I know I'm straying away from our topic, but I've had people who have taken and been certified by some organizations, and people say, oh, they're really good, and they fail. They
Hmm.
miserably the AAAI test. And I don't say that to make people afraid or anything like that, but I'm like, wow, and I know that was a surprise when I first started seeing, but I've seen it many times. It's not the certification that makes the trainer. It may open a door here or there, but it really is the knowledge. And if you're self-employed, nobody, it doesn't matter you're certified by. Again, it comes back to the knowledge. Keep learning. Don't rely on the certification.
Yes.
They're certified and qualified. Qualified is you keep learning after those certifications, and certified is you pass the test and then you didn't learn anything else. So
Yeah, that's so true. And you figure most of the people who write the books are working for more than one organization.
yeah,
So it's like, come on.
yeah, it just doesn't matter in the United States who you're certified by, and I know I've seen people online who say all certifications are, and they use a word that I won't use because this is a G rated interview, podcast interview. But I don't know if I would say that, but I do think it's in people's best interest to stay educated. But I don't necessarily think you have to go into credit card debt, especially if you don't have any clients and you're getting your very first certification. Think to yourself, hey, if I'm going to spend $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever on some certification, how long is it going to take you to pay that off at 23 or 25% credit card interest?
Yes.
You're paying every month. That's why I would not do it. I think that's the biggest issue that nobody is talking about. Never, ever, ever go into credit card debt to be a personal trainer. I would not do it.
Yep.
Get something that's affordable. If you want to get some other certifications down the road when you are making some money, I think that's a great thing to do if you want to do it. Or just do what I would do, is go buy their books, which are sometimes more expensive than I still think, but it's still going to cost you less than $2,000 or whatever dollars for a certification. So that would be my opinion.
Yeah, it was interesting at one of the conferences I went to. They have human kinetics publishers. And that's why I went in there and I talked to the lady about it. I says, okay, what's the hot book? What's everybody buying? And it's like, she told me this book. I go, oh, really? Why is it that one? She says, because it's the easiest. It covers things in such nice ways. And it says when you have hard topics, it would put it in like a graph form. So they have like pictures to explain, what do you do for exercise? What does diabetes look like? What does weight loss look like? Because it was so simple. I'm like, how well was that? Why didn't they have that when I was in school? And they used to have what they called cliff notes, or the other one's called cram sheets. And I haven't seen those in years. And they had the best one. One of them I saw was really good. It was how many calories you consume, how much you weigh, and how much weight you can expect to lose per week. And it went down as you lost weight, you had to decrease your calories, and it got to the point where you can't lose any more weight. And they're like, what? They said, no. It says, you're trying to do something that is completely unacceptable or unattainable with your program. And it says, you don't count the fact that you're actually gaining muscle mass and bone density, so it's going to counter some of that. And they're like, this is just people who are just losing weight. They're not exercising. It's totally different. Yeah. And then they always get into the weird world of, okay, this is the exercise du jour. Well, everybody's running around with 50-pound vests on. Like, why do you want to prepare yourself to hold more weight? I'm like, what? It says, well, if you weigh 200 pounds and you put 50 extra pounds on you, You're making your body stronger so it can hold 50 extra pounds. So that when you're eating the potato chips, you go, oh, heck, we can store all the weight we want to now. No, you want to be lighter and faster and more agile. That's the one that wins.
I got to work on a video on those vests. I see them a lot, and I'm
Oh,
not convinced that the science proves that they'll help people lose weight. I think what they will do is they'll put an awful lot of stress on your low back and your knees and your hips, which I don't think you need that,
no.
especially somebody who's already overweight and already has a lot of stress.
Yes.
And I'm not convinced that wearing a weighted vest for a half an hour or an hour is going to make any significant dent in calorie burning at the end of the day. But I need to
Or
look at,
increase your strength.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
again, I don't want strong athletes. Do you want big, strong athletes, or do you want fast, agile athletes? I mean, no one talks about the big, strong guys. Only talk about the real agile ones, like, like Michael Vick or those guys. It's like they're not big, but they're so agile. And so,
Yeah, I was interviewing Jessica Maurer a few months ago, and she was saying, the fitness industry has a reputation problem. They were trying to sell quick results, and it didn't work. They don't talk about, hey, if you come in regularly, you're going to feel better, have more energy. They still focus on that weight loss, and if we just beat you into the ground with exercise, that it'll be better for you. And that's wrong, and it hasn't helped the fitness industry.
yes.
And I agree with her 100%. The fitness industry needs to make a course direction change, and I think we're seeing the same thing right now because fitness. Some areas of the fitness industry have embraced the weight loss drugs, where
Yes.
you get the drug and prescribed by a doctor, I'm guessing, and then they hook you up with a personal trainer, and will exercise even counteract that
Mhm.
effect of the medication in terms of muscle loss? I don't know if we know that yet. And then there's that whole issue of people taking these medications like yeah, I'm thinking about Ozempic and that ilk. You're not drinking, you're not eating as much, there's a risk of dehydration, there's a risk of like maybe a low blood sugar. Personal trainers, are they aware of these potential pitfalls? I don't know. I just wish the fitness industry would get off shiny
Yes.
the shiny object of the week and
Mhm.
focus on, let's stay healthy, let's give you more energy, let's help you live a better quality of life. And yet they just don't do that. So again, I know I'm drifting off, as I always do, into a different tangent, which is what we were going to talk about. But yeah, I mean, that's something for personal trainers to be thinking about, not be fixated on shiny object syndrome. Focus on what works.
Yes. So it was interesting is at that conference, they did the weight loss drugs, but this was their promo.
What the heck is that?
It's a pin,
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's a pen. Oh gee whiz.
and it's made like a syringe. It even has a liquid in it. So I said, "Can I have one of those pins?" He goes, "Well, I've got to use it, man, because this is such a great thing for promo." If it goes, "Sure, go ahead and take it." I'm like, "Well, this is scary. When this is your promo is a syringe." No, I like it because it's different, but that is so true.
Yeah.
We got to get, people consistent is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And it's not, even a consistent bad is better than non-consistent. A
Yeah.
bad program is better than no program at all, as long as you don't get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the fitness world's not really embracing that as much as they should,
No.
unfortunately. Some personal trainers are, but I don't see TV commercials where the gym industry is talking about that, and that bothers me. And I also have a problem with the whole health and fitness industry in general because you look at, again, another tangent of mine is I don't see Batman on broccoli, I don't see Spider-Man on spinach, I see them on cereal boxes. I don't see anybody in Hollywood in a movie or TV show eating a salad. I always see them fastening their seat belts. That tells me there's some kind of a lobby thing in Hollywood, or there's some kind of box they have to check where if they get in a car, you gotta fasten your seatbelt. There's no box next to eating a salad or taking a jog or a walk or going to the gym. And that bothers me because I think it's only about 20% of Americans meet the exercise guidelines. Why is it, and here's another tangent of mine, why is it I don't see any celebrities talking about health and fitness and eating well and exercising? I see those YouTube videos, the commercials where they're talking about gambling I'm seeing celebrities, and if you're watching videos, you know the celebrities I'm talking about is gambling, 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 or credit cards, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
None of these multi millionaire celebrities doing commercials because they can afford it, or public service announcements about eating better and exercising. The only time they do it is when they have a health scare and some big drug company says, "Hey, want to promote our drug?" And that's the only time I hear them talking about weight loss or singing about diabetes. Nobody sings about exercise, which
Yeah.
bothers me.
Or
Again,
else they're affected by it and got, some really bad health stuff with it.
yeah. So I think we have, again, to quote, and I'll just quote, Kennedy on this: America is very, very sick. Why isn't anybody with some gravitas taking this bull by the horns and putting up billboards or hiring celebrities to talk about these sorts of things? And again, I've said this in class before. I'm old enough, and you were old enough to remember back in 1976, for an entire year, we had the bicentennial minute. For an entire year, people said, in this day, in 1776, George Washington, blah, blah, blah. It came on every night between 8 and 10 o'clock at night on CBS, back when we had only 3 channels to watch. And for an entire year, they talked about the bicentennial of the country. Why is it we don't have like some kind of, public service announcement every night on television or on YouTube, or, things like that, where we talk about health and fitness and wellness, or interview personal trainers, or interview some kind of influencer and how they're making a difference? I don't see that out there, and that bothers me. And I hate to keep putting it on the celebrities, but they do have that gravitas that a lot of not have. And if I could see a celebrity out there going to the gym, I think that would speak to a certain segment of the population.
Mhm.
The only person I can remember ever doing this is Cher, when she was promoting the 30-minute workout at Bally's, and
Yep.
that was back in the 80s. I don't see anybody doing that
I think
anymore.
of it. Yeah, I think Mark Wahlberg does a lot of PR stuff with that. But that's again, so you have to be at those events for the PR stuff because they're not putting them on TV because it's kind of opposite of their agenda. We don't really want a bunch of healthy people. Well, yeah, we do because they cost too much.
The president had recently did his physical fitness council. He's going to bring back the physical fitness, physical fitness, presidential physical fitness test.
Yeah.
And I watched on TV, he's got a bunch of celebrities behind him, but I didn't know who any. And again, Triple H, the wrestler, no offense, Triple H, but I don't necessarily think that you're a good role model for general health and fitness, in the general population.
Yeah.
And most of those people, again, I'm like, what are you doing? Being on the Physical Fitness Council, what does that even mean? Are you going to get out there with people? Are you going to do interviews like this with podcasters? Get on Joe Rogan or wherever talking about health and fitness. Get on like television. Why aren't we funding TV commercials in prime time, or taking out Google ads on YouTube in videos to talk about this? That's where I think we need to go. And I know I've strayed completely off topic.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's what we need to do though, because that's where the training changes.
Yeah, and it may just come to personal trainers taking this bull by the horns by themselves and saying, forget about the Physical Fitness Council and forget about the celebrities. We're doing this ourselves. And again, I am starting to see this to a degree. Like, for instance, I see Joey Swall on TikTok and YouTube a lot, calling out the bad players in the gym world. And I think that's phenomenal, because the gym is a great place to be. And are there dum-dums in the gym? Yeah, more now than other. Yeah, because they all want to video themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate him really trying to make a difference on that. And I would love to see other people as well. And I don't just mean the doctors, and I see the doctors on there, but some of them I disagree with what they're saying. Some of them, they say some goofy stuff that they shouldn't be doing. I actually saw an influencer. She wants to be an influencer, and she's got some kind of exercise science degree. And I've seen her videos. But then I just saw her the other day streaming off into religion. And she's an atheist. And I was like, what are you doing? Why aren't you staying in your lane? So I was just like, click away.
That was, you look at some of the people like with, there's been some gyms that completely just lost their business because they made a statement on something that had nothing to do with the gym, like on abortion or whatever.
Right.
So no matter what you say on a hot topic, you're going to lose 50% of your people.
Right. And there is another business mistake for personal trainers to bring us right back on target.
Yeah.
What don't you talk to clients about? You don't
Yeah.
talk religion. You don't talk politics. Generally, you don't talk money unless they owe you money. I had, a case in point, I had two clients. Both of these individuals were homebound. They were watching TV all day long. They were watching the same channels, the same news channels. One was a diehard Democrat, and the other one was a diehard Republican. And they were watching the same thing. So talking politics to clients, unless you're absolutely sure they share your same beliefs, I think that's an issue. And religion the same way. People
Oh,
can
yes.
be motivated. And I know personal trainers may do that, but I would not do that. I think that's a quick way to lose a client potentially. So I wouldn't do it. I think it's a huge business mistake. And again, going on social media and saying dumb stuff is also a huge business mistake. So personal trainers, if you're watching us right now, go through your social media, and anything that's crazy and dumb, I think you should be deleting from your accounts immediately, because your potential clients are going to look you up. They're going to look at your social media, and if they see weird stuff, and I'll let the trainers decide what they think is weird, but anything you wouldn't want your mom and grandmom seeing is probably off limits, and you probably want to delete that. And also potential employers, if you're going to a gym, they're going to look at your social media accounts. I just talked to somebody in a class I taught a couple weeks ago, and they said the same thing. They looked at his social media accounts, and they didn't want him videoing on the premises, he said.
I make that, yeah, it's true. There's a lot of gyms that do that now.
Yeah,
And what was interesting was when you're talking about not talking with clients about touchy subjects. For a while, I had two retired senators I was training at the same time, and one was Republican and one was Democrat. And they got into some of the best conversation. And I'm just sitting back kind of orchestrating what was going on. And they always ended up with the same solution, just from two different ways. And I was like, why didn't you guys do this when you were in Congress? It's because there was too many people pulling us away from what was going on. Yeah, it was interesting. So it's like, okay, but that's why they said that's why we did this on purpose. Because it started because one time there was something wrong with that. We couldn't fly home. So we drove home together.
nice. When
So
people
we
talk.
should have videotaped that entire trip because it would have been priceless.
Yeah, or these days get a YouTube channel, or
Really, they would make big bucks.
yeah, most definitely. And I think people would like that.
Mhm.
But for the average personal trainer, I would not do it. I had a client once, and I didn't bring up politics, and I'm glad I didn't, because I later learned that she knew the president, not the current president, a former president, and I won't say which, but had I had spoke up,
Yeah.
I probably would have gotten into some hot water. But she knew the president and that president's whole family, and very tight with them. But again, I'm glad I listened to my own advice and didn't say anything.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, but Mike, this has been a great conversation.
Oh, definitely love it. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for personal trainers or people who want to be personal trainers?
The biggest thing I would say is don't get so serious. Take yourself lightly. I mean, you're not going to be perfect body. Most people who are really good trainers are not perfect people. They've gone through cancer. They've gone through weight loss or weight gain stuff. They've gone through trauma. And again, it's all about the why. You look at the best trainer of all time. No one wanted to look like him. It was Richard Simmons. He helped more people by far. At one time, he had stuff in I think 60% of the household. And then you had the guys that were totally on the opposite side, like Jack LaLanne. So you can have the extremes and still have great results for the average person. So there's no cookie cutter trainer.
I would agree. If there were two people you want to have in your corner, it would be Richard Simmons or Jack LaLanne. And for
Yeah.
the younger trainers watching us who are like, who's Jack LaLanne? You guys should look him up. That's actually, if you want to be a personal trainer, you should know who Jack LaLanne was and what
Yeah.
he accomplished, because you're still using his equipment in the gym. You just don't know it. So there's
And his
homework.
programs in the home exercise because he had a show on TV for 50.
Yeah, so you should be a fitness historian and know these things. But yeah, him or or Richard Simmons are the people you want in your corner, because Richard, I still hear stories of people who say Richard Simmons would, save my life and talk to me on the phone.
Absolutely.
So, really, really nice guy.
That was a blessing. I got to meet both of them and work with them. And they were both the same person, just in a different wrapper. They were both passionate about life and helping other people. And whatever way you could get to your goal, it's fantastic. And where you are right now is awesome because you're the product of all your best intentions. And hopefully you don't have bad intentions.